If you've ever noticed that the sharpest person in any room is often the quietest one at the party, the one standing near the exit with a drink they're not really drinking, what follows will explain exactly why that happens. And by the end, you'll understand something about intelligence that almost nobody says out loud. We're raised on a simple promise: think faster, score higher, outperform the room, and life pays you back in ease and happiness. But what if the trait you spent your whole childhood chasing is the same trait quietly working against you as an adult? What if the thing people compliment you on at dinner parties is also the thing keeping you up at 2 a.m., replaying a sentence you said 6 hours ago? This isn't a guilt trip aimed at smart people. It's naming a cost nobody bothers to mention, because the world loves to applaud a sharp mind and stays almost suspiciously quiet about everything that sharpness takes in return. Start with the first cost: overthinking paralysis. An average mind looks at a decision and sees a fork in the road. A highly intelligent mind looks at the same decision and sees 100 forks, each one branching into its own maze of outcomes, risks, and second, order consequences nobody asked it to calculate. Where one person picks a lane in 5 minutes, another can circle the same choice for days, unwilling to land on an answer that hasn't been interrogated from every angle it can imagine. The result is a strange, almost unfair paradox: the smarter you are, the harder it becomes to simply move. You're not short on options, you're drowning in them. And an abundance of options, it turns out, builds its own kind of prison. No bars, just walls made of, but what if? This doesn't stay confined to the big stuff either. It leaks into the smallest corners of a normal day. A text message gets drafted, deleted, and redrafted 3 times before it's sent, and then read another 5 times after, hunting for a tone that might have been misread. The mind treats a 2-line reply to a coworker with the same seriousness. It gives a genuine crossroads, because it doesn't come with an off switch for small stuff. That constant churn burns energy in a way that has nothing to do with a long day at the gym and everything to do with a brain that refuses to idle. Here's where it gets a little uncomfortable. So sit with it for a second. Highly intelligent people tend to run hotter on anxiety and chronic worry than people with average intelligence. Their minds are built to spot patterns, forecast outcomes, and rehearse worst-case scenarios well before there's any real evidence those scenarios are coming. That means a sharp mind rarely just lives in the present. It's 2 or 3 steps ahead, quietly staging disasters that may never show up. From the outside, that hyper-awareness looks like foresight, almost a superpower. From the inside, it feels closer to a low hum that never fully goes quiet. Always scanning, always questioning, always checking the floor for cracks that aren't there yet. The second cost is isolation, and it runs deeper than the occasional "nobody gets me" moment. It's the quiet difficulty of finding people who move at the same pace, who want to go 3 layers deep on a conversation instead of staying on the surface. Over time, a lot of intelligent people learn to shrink themselves in conversation, simplifying, softening, trimming their real thoughts down to something more palatable, just to stay relatable. Do that enough times and a gap opens up between who you actually are and who you present to the room. It's not that connection isn't wanted. It's that real connection gets rare when your mind is tuned to a frequency most people around you aren't picking up. And this gets misread constantly. Distance gets mistaken for arrogance. Quiet gets mistaken for judgment. What actually sits underneath it is closer to a low-grade grief. The grief of wanting to be understood and rarely getting the full version of that. A lot of intelligent people get so good at hiding this that even the people closest to them never clock it, because saying it out loud feels like complaining about a gift the rest of the world insists you should be thankful for. There's a well-documented pattern that explains why intelligence can flip from gift to trap, and it's tied to something researchers call the curse of competence. The more you actually understand a subject, the more clearly you can see the edges of what you still don't know. There's a well-known finding on this. People with real skill tend to underestimate their own ability, while people with limited skill tend to wildly overestimate theirs. Translation: the smarter you get, the more visible your own ignorance becomes to you, and that visibility quietly chips away at your confidence, even as your actual competence keeps climbing. That's why so many genuinely brilliant people carry private insecurity underneath outward success that, on paper, should feel like more than enough. The third cost is emotional overload, and it's one almost nobody accounts for. Highly intelligent people tend to feel with the same intensity they think, which means the inside of their head is rarely calm. Sadness doesn't just show up and get felt. It gets felt and simultaneously analyzed. Why is this happening? How long will it last? Is this reaction even proportional? All while the sadness itself is still very much happening in real time. That's double processing. Thinking about the thinking, feeling about the feeling. It's a specific, quiet kind of exhaustion most people never have to deal with, because even rest becomes another window for the brain to start solving problems nobody assigned it. If any of this has felt uncomfortably familiar so far, that flicker of recognition is the whole point. Most people go their entire lives without ever hearing their internal experience described back to them in plain language. The fourth cost is decision fatigue built from constant self-awareness. Instinct doesn't get to run free when every impulse, desire, and small choice gets automatically examined before it's even allowed to happen. That makes life feel heavier overall, not because intelligence makes life objectively harder, but because it quietly strips away the comfort of just not thinking about something. There's an old, slightly unsettling truth buried in that. Ignorance can feel like peace, while heightened awareness demands constant engagement with reality, including the uncomfortable parts most people would rather scroll past. There's one more layer underneath all of this, and it might be the most isolating one. Highly intelligent people tend to notice manipulation, inconsistency, and dishonesty long before anyone else in the room does. And most of the time, they have to sit on it because pointing it out too often gets you labeled difficult, paranoid, or too much. That leaves a lot of sharp people in a strange holding pattern, watching a situation unfold exactly the way they predicted it would, while pretending they didn't already see the ending coming from a mile away. Intelligence was never actually the flaw here. The real problem is that nobody ever prepares intelligent people for the emotional bill that comes attached to their own mind. Nobody sits a bright kid down and says this gift is going to cost you sleep, ease, and a certain kind of simplicity you'll watch other people enjoy without even trying. That silence is the actual failure, not the intelligence itself. If any part of this landed, it's worth sitting with rather than shrugging off. Somewhere out there, someone else who reads this needs the reminder that what they're carrying has a name, a pattern, and company, and that they are nowhere near as alone in it as it currently feels.